Hello colleagues and peers, my name is Natasha and in this presentation I'll be exploring the learning theory and constructivism. I will discuss its key features, the strengths and limitations, my overall values and beliefs on this theory, and how teachers can use this learning theory to develop a constructivist classroom where their students become active participants in their learning. Constructivism is a learning theory which essentially explores how we learn by constructing new knowledge to prior knowledge. This idea was developed by one of the first constructivist theories, Jean Piaget, who notioned that we are active participants in building our knowledge. In constructivism, the key idea is that the learner constructs knowledge by linking it to meaning. And because they construct or monitor their own learning, the learners are regarded as self-regulated. Other major features of this theory include the importance of social interaction with other individuals during cognitive development, and how this can positively influence gaining deeper understanding of knowledge. And because constructivism emphasizes the role of the learner, it caters for individual differences. This means that learning knowledge is different or subjective to each person uniquely, because they connect their own meaning to the knowledge and understandings. A way to explain constructivism easily is through this interesting analogy by Rita Smuxton, where we build a tree of knowledge. So the stems of this tree are essentially the foundation of pre-existing knowledge, and as we develop a more in-depth understanding and progress to a higher order of thinking, these become the branches. And what I personally like about this analogy is that these branches symbolize different content, which cannot appear without the growth of the stem, which is the core knowledge. So with the overall concept of what constructivism is, it is time to focus on some of the types of constructivism. And the two I'll be exploring are psychological constructivism and social constructivism. Psychological constructivism is built on Piaget's theory of cognitive development and focuses on how individuals construct their beliefs, knowledge, and identity during learning. Whereas on the other hand, social constructivism focuses on Vygotsky's notion on the social role and cultures that influence learning. It is in this theory that the individual's knowledge acquired is not solely on them, but instead on how social interaction influences cognitive development. Later on, I will explore how I'll connect these two types of constructivism within my classroom. Now it is time to focus on the strengths and limitations of constructivism. The strengths of constructivism, as discussed by Kalia Roberts, is that it provides a method of teaching that is considered quite effective for students who learn better through kinetic learning or hands-on, because this theory allows students to relate what they learn in the classroom and link it to the bigger picture. But ultimately, what really stands out in this theory is that the learners are active in what they learn and what they want to discover, compared to other learning theories such as behaviorism, which assumes the learners are passive in responding to the surroundings. And because this theory prioritizes the role of the learner, it encourages teachers to learn about their students to determine how they best acquire the content that needs to be covered. And with the awareness of how our students effectively learn, we can cater to their needs for different resources. Lastly, this theory proposes that the importance of social culture context and interactions for the learners, which allows deeper learning instead of surface learning. The limitations of constructivism is that the teachers need extensive training and professional development to be able to master the use of constructivism within their classroom, and that some teachers still do not feel confident in using discovery learning in their curriculum. However, the main limitation of using constructivism comes down to a classroom size. It takes a lot of time and effort for teachers to discover how each individual learns best with an average classroom of 20 to 30 students. The teacher needs to ensure that they have provided enough information to support constructivist learning before allowing group work among students. And it is difficult for the teacher to monitor each peer group within the classroom and ensure that they are accurately and actively leading discussion on the content and completing their tasks due to the number of students in the room. So where do I stand on constructivism? In summary, this theory ultimately suggests that the learners are the ones who construct and build their own knowledge and understandings from the world based on experience or prior knowledge. And I agree to this because this theory really emphasizes a student-centered approach to learning. I believe that everyone learns best in different forms, therefore making learning a unique experience to all. Focusing on one subject area, biology for example, students learn about cells and the organelles including their functions. My Year 7 classroom teacher supplied diagrams and PowerPoint presentations to engage visual learners. However, additionally, they created an assessment task for us to bake a cake to represent a cell and decorate it with edible lollies, each representing the different organelles within a cell. This constructivist assessment task invited students to construct a personal connection to the content and allowed for a hands-on approach to learning cells. And still to this day, I can recall every organelle within a cell. And because it was such an engaging task that I enjoyed, I can remember it 6 years later. And it is the fact that I can relate other skills and knowledge to this content that has allowed me to retain this information. As a teacher, I will construct my classroom so that the learning is interactive and engaging to my students. This will allow for me to develop an acquiring-based learning environment where I facilitate and guide the learning, but allow my students to feel valued and involved in what the content is. To allow effective teaching within a classroom, it is necessary for a teacher to use different approaches to teaching content. For example, in my classroom, I would use ICT to access the use of different images, resources, and videos, allowing for my students to use the content learnt in the classroom and link it to the real world. Through using different resources and styles of presenting the content, it increases my likelihood of connecting to the individual students for them to effectively learn. A PowerPoint can stimulate visual learners, for example, whilst on the other hand, worksheets allow for students who prefer kinetic learning. These are all resources that can facilitate psychological constructivism for the students to construct the content to their beliefs, knowledge, and identity during learning. And to incorporate social constructivism within the classroom, I will use a different teaching approach that I too experienced during my secondary education. This approach is reciprocal teaching, which was pioneered by Polinska and Brown. And the aim of this teaching approach is to assist learners with their reading comprehension. A teacher would divide their students up into small groups and allow for the students within the group to each actively listen and discuss a text or concept, for example, to essentially build a more complex understanding of the text and or concept. This teaching approach is linked to Vygotsky's notion on the social interaction that influences learning. Using reciprocal teaching allows for teachers to facilitate the learning and encourage higher order thinking skills. A constructivist teacher's goal is to help their students to construct their knowledge that will ultimately prepare them for life. Overall, constructivism is a learning field that explores how we are active participants in building our knowledge through linking it to meaning. Although constructivism has a few limitations, I personally believe the strengths outweigh them. In the future, I will develop a constructivist classroom to cater for the needs of all my students to allow for effective learning. Thank you for watching and listening.